Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Real Time Coaching Lab. I could not be more excited about our guest, my friend, and just all around one of the best humans that you can find at Compass. Melissa quietly does so many things, I would say, in the shadows of the world, but she is somebody that's the giver's giver. Is if you looked up Wikipedia and thoughtful friend in Wikipedia, you should see a picture of Melissa because when she starts sharing
Aw.
with you how she curates relationships, thinks of people, down to the small, unique, curated meals that she hosts and cooks for people in her home, or I was a privilege to go to them one time when I was in Miami and the food was delicious. She runs a really special business and is truly just an incredible person. And she's also the founder of the National Advisory. So she'll talk a little bit about that today. So Melissa, introduce yourself, where you work, a little bit about your team, and one fun fact about yourself that nobody would know if they looked you up online.
Cool. Okay. So the fun fact would probably be that I rappelled off the Marriott Marquis rooftop for charity, for a children's charity. And I don't know if anybody's ever rappelled, but it is quite interesting to see the whole city. And it was very scary.
I never
So,
even knew that.
yeah, yeah, try to do different things for the community. And that was one of them that somebody asked me to do. Once was enough. But
Yes.
anyway, I'm so happy to be here and share and collaborate and do everything that we do best at Compass. But I am based in Miami Beach, and our team, we have 5 agents that work predominantly in Miami up to Fort Lauderdale. And I have an admin, which she does everything behind the scenes. And I have a team of 5 social media people that I work with that focus on every medium of social media.
Wow. Well, let's start there. What do 5 different people do for you?
They focus on every medium. For me, I know that social media is something that's really important. We have to do it. I don't want to do it. It's not income producing and I'm really bad at it. So they are experts. One does all of my blogging and they do all of my emails. One does LinkedIn, reaching out for LinkedIn to help build relationships for me. One builds relationships in Instagram. One videographer comes and we do B-roll so that we can continue growing and showing our great city. And they do it better than me. So that's what they do.
So in terms of like managing people, right? How do you manage both your agents and the existing group of your social media or media team?
The media people, I have a call biweekly, and they're really on top of me to make sure that we have very structured social media. They know my voice. I've been working with them for 15 years and everything is structured. So they give me my schedule, I fill it in, they remind me when I don't do it on time, and it's very efficient. And then every 2 weeks, I have a call with the principal of the company and we go over all of the things that I'm thinking of because we have all great ideas, but then how do we execute them and how many can we execute so that we're effective? And then the team, I think for me, there's no one size fits all. We can only guide, but then it's up to the people to do the work. So everything, I always meet with people once a week for 30 minutes to talk about whatever is on their plate. And then we'll meet separately to talk about things that might be a group thing. And then once a quarter we get together. We'll do a lunch, we'll do something so that we can be together outside of work.
So when you talk about the get-togethers, really that's like building your culture, right? So for you, when you think of those events and bringing people together and sharing your values, how does that show up for you?
It's the values are the most important. And so it starts with everybody on the team has the same values. We might be superficially different, but in terms of passions and collaboration and helping each other, that's all the same. And we're all at different stages of our careers and making sure that I do a good job with them to make sure that I bring out the best in them and what they think they want, not necessarily what I think they want. And I always use the words, have you thought of? What do you think of? As opposed to do this or do that, because it's not about me, it's about them.
That's a good shift into our next topic, right? Like we spent a lot of time working together on making it all about them, right? So
Yes.
I want to get into for you, when you think about your clients, I can tell you this, everyone listen, review these notes. Her past client system is so organized, it's crazy. You think like a robot made it. So when you think about these relationships, gifting, categorizing them, organizing them, why don't you walk everyone through kind of where you were when you started and where you are today and what was the gap?
I think my big gap was defending the market. And when you use the word like a client is
Wait,
difficult.
hold on. Time out, time
Oh,
out. I'm gonna pause you. We'll get
oh,
into sales scripting and crazy clients because we
no.
have to talk about your one
Oh,
client.
sorry. Sorry,
I'm talking about
sorry.
your past clients. And remember that spreadsheet we would work on of here's the person, here's their lifetime value, here's the gift.
Yes. Oh,
Walk them through
sorry.
that because that's what I want you to share first because it's really
Okay.
elaborate on what you did. You can even pull up your sheet if you want to share your screen.
Oh, that would be way too organized. That I am not that organized.
I know the tech part.
But so one of the things I worked on with Shirag for a long time, because we all want to gift, we all want to spend time on things, but what is the real value of each of the human beings in terms of like lifetime relationship? And then how do you spend your time and your funds to make sure? So we started like an org chart. So I'm going to make it up. There was a guy named David. And David introduced me to Barry. And Barry bought an apartment and he spent $3.5 million. And then Barry bought another apartment and he spent $7.5 million. So that that was my first $11 million. So David is now worth $11 million. I'm making this up. So when I first met Barry, I would do everything for David. I had took his family out. I sent them on a trip skiing. I did something to try to repay and I did that before I sent a gift before I ever closed any transactions with Barry, because I think it's most important to recognize when somebody does something nice for you immediately, as opposed to 6 months or a year later when it may be forgotten. So that's one of the things I always do. I always touch base with someone and send them something that I think that would fit into their home that they might like when they do something nice for me. Then Barry introduced me to Peter. Peter bought a property for $14.5 million. He sold a property for $14.5 million and he bought another property for $14.5 million. So David's now lifetime value to me is over $50 million in terms of sales and volume. And I continue to refer him business and I continue to send gifts yearly just to make sure he knows how appreciative I am. Even he parks at my house and I pay for his valet parking when he goes to theater.
So I'm going to pause her here for a second, right? So if you think about this, right? It is the only way to understand in a sea of people in your database who to focus on, right? So if you've have kids and you've gone to like Dave and Buster's in your arcade place, they have it categorized. Like if you have 100 tickets, 500 tickets, 1,000 tickets, like you get different prizes, right? So in your business, if I referred Melissa to, let's just say, Robert Refkin's an agent, right? So Robert, I bought a house with Robert. Now I referred Melissa. Now Robert's gotten 2 transactions out of me, right? But then I also refer Rory and I refer Netta and I referred Will, and like all those transactions are sourced back to me. So that one relationship I have is quantifiably worth more than a lot of the other ones, right? So it's a really good way to organize it. Now, when you start thinking about gifting, right, how do you do this at scale? Because you've sold a lot of people properties with it making it Melissa feel personalized as well as not spending all day on this. I've seen some agents spend 2 hours figuring out a $20 closing gift.
When I first meet somebody, and I do work on the med, see, I always try to find out what's most important to them. And I put that in my notes. So when it does come time for me to do something for them, I already have that in my memory. So example, I had a client, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, because it's the value as a human being. So I had a new client. We met in December by phone. We did the Med C, and we were planning to meet to see properties. Now, they are big dog lovers, and I knew that. And I also knew that they were getting their third boxer at the time that I was going to see them. So on the day that I met them, we showed the first property, but then I handed them a gift basket that I handmade of everything dog related, so that they understood the experience was going to be very tailored to them. So that's how I started with them, knowing the things they like. They love dogs, they love caviar, they like champagne, they like boating.
And how did that show up for them? Like, what was their response? How did that change the experience?
They they didn't say anything at the time, but then they sent me pictures of the dog with all the toys, so I knew that they were very happy about it. And then if we fast forward, because we were in contract in a home towards Christmas, and I knew they loved champagne when I was in France, I I got them, Veuve Clicquot had a shop, and I had like the cozy made with their name on it, the family, and little things on it. So I was able to give that to them at closing, and they knew I was thinking about them in France when I was there.
So for you, this is just like a fluid thing that's just kind of become part of like your everyday habits of where you go, how you think about people.
I feel like for me, giving is so important. It makes me feel good. And I'm always trying to figure out what that is. And I use charity a lot as a way to give also. If somebody does something nice for me, I'll send a note and ask them to send me, like, I have a beautiful card that I've had printed that just says, I'd love to make a donation in your honor. Please send me your charity of your choice. And then I do so, and I make a charitable donation. And I do that if you might make an introduction for me, or just do something nice, or just something to show that I care, and it's not just a handwritten note, which I always do anyway.
I have many of your handwritten notes.
I
And Melissa
but
knows that myself and my girlfriend that we really like to travel. So we have like these Tiffany's blue luggage tags that we use when we travel, and we always think of Melissa, right? And so a card can come in, and Tiffany, she says, "Oh my God, that's from that's the same lady who made us the luggage tags in Florida." And I'm like, "Yep, exactly, right." So look, there's also like a learned behavior from people when you get these gifts, right? And I think Melissa said something really important that I don't want us to go over, right? Is she said that she gave them the stuff, and I said, "What was their response?" And she says they had no response. And there's many times when we give somebody a gift, we have an expectation of what the response will be. And just the fact that she did not get rattled, did not think anything, she didn't have start having these stories in her head, right? I think it's really important part of relationship building, because look, it's not that somebody might not have cared, they just might have gotten busy, and in their mind, how many times have we wrote a message and not hit send, or we put something and we want to personalize the image and email, make it great, get stuck in our inbox. So great job on just being patient, thoughtful, and kind. Right. So now we can get into scripting and conversations, right? So one of the things that we had worked on was, listen, I can say this in 19 years of working in the real estate industry. This one client that Melissa has is the craziest, most insane, difficult client I've ever heard of anyone on earth. And now think about how many people I've worked with. Describe some of the things this man has said to you.
he said to me, it calls me expensive, Melissa, because my compensation is greater than some of the other brokers he works with,
That's
and
like
he's
one of the
not.
nicer things that he says.
He's a special person. And the thing that you taught me is that people are not difficult. They want what they want. And to be able to acknowledge what they want without getting upset about it, although I would have like my own session of like cursing to myself, I think sets us apart to be better humans and better at what we do.
Can you share some of the crazy things he said, just, and then we'll get to the next part of this I want people to realize. Like some of the things that he said for you before we built like the iron wall of like it doesn't really matter. Some of the stuff he said is really hurtful, right? Like, and it's just his way of communicating is crazy.
We all work with high net worth people. Some I think are kinder than others. Some are not. And That's okay. I mean, he's called me dumb. He's called me all, a lot of things, but you know what? I just took the checks to the bank. And
And
now
how
I
much money have you earned from this just one client?
probably, because I have two more sales to close. So probably 600 or $700,000.
She says that so modestly, 600 or something. That's a
But I've
lot of
also,
money for people that most people would just give up on.
right, but I've also now chosen not to work with him
That's the end.
because that was the end. It's okay. I learned, we
100%.
grew, and that's okay.
Yeah, this was, I think, what, 4 years of working with him, right?
Yes. Yep. And I have two more closing left, which will be in 2027 or 28. And that's it. It's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good. But I would like to say to you, because this is like so I wanted to go back to these clients, the ones with the dogs, and I did show them just 2 days worth of homes, not just because it's still a lot of time to prepare it. I did prepare a spreadsheet of the 15 homes with probably 15 things in each of them that I had to call every agent. It probably took me 10 hours to do that because he wanted to know the height of the bridge when it was open or it was closed because we were looking at waterfront. He wanted to know the weight of the boat lifts. I mean, he was very specific, and I made sure that I gave him the specificity that he wanted. And then when it came down to writing the offer, what he said was, well, you didn't really spend that much time with me. You only took us out twice. So I think you should get paid X. And that's when I started to become defensive because in my mind, and it was obviously my own mind, he didn't see the value of the relationship I introduced into, the time that I spent, that everything that I did for them. And it
Go ahead.
made me feel really yucky.
Of course it should. It's human, right?
And then I mean, it's fine. We have a great again, we learned from it, but then I had sold his house and which was great. We sold it the highest price, which he said to me, well, it was just because the house was so great. It didn't have anything to do with you. And then he said, when we were
Get rid of
25,
one, you find another, right?
when I keep learning, right? Just we keep learning and growing. And then when he said, when we were $25,000 apart, he said, I didn't want to come back. I don't want you to go back to the buyer. I want you to pay for it because again, you didn't work that hard.
So what did you do in these situations?
On
The
his
first
home,
one,
the first one, I became defensive. And I started trying to justify all the things that I did. And I knew that was not great. And we wound up conflicting. And that wasn't
you
good.
have a signed buyer's agreement?
Oh, we had a signed buyer's agreement where he would not pay for compensation. That was the other thing with this particular buyer. He'd rather not show him a house than pay for compensation. So that was very clear.
So then what was offered from the listing agent or the seller?
The listing agent offered 2%, and he wanted me to cut that by half a point.
And so what ended up happening?
Both listing agents cut to make it work. And that I would have done that anyway to make it work. If that was the only way out of doing this, I would have done it anyway
Did three
because
people split his 0.5%?
no, the agent and I split the half a percent.
Okay, listen, sometimes, look, I always tell people, ideally, you don't want to cut commission, right? But sometimes you're not cutting commission, you're making the investment of getting your schedule back and not showing somebody all of these properties, right?
But I could have used better languaging rather than getting defensive. I could have, I mean, what I said was the compensation was cut by 50% because normally I would have gone back to ask for the buyer for the extra point. So, right, because normally our compensation's 3%, the seller was paying 2%, I would have gotten that other point from the buyer, who in this case wasn't paying. So I said, not only are you cutting this compensation, but it's already been cut. So I said, look how much money you're saving to begin with, which he didn't find me funny. But it felt yuck. So I think what could I have said that would have been better, not defensive?
Well, look, I was, we can go, we'll treat the symptom, we got to cure the cause, right? So in the beginning, right, when you meet with somebody, you're going to say, look, like, I will show you properties that have compensation. But so you understand, compensation can range from as little as 1% to as much as 3%. And I need you to understand that either way, the investment normally for my services is 3%. But if the property you want is 2%, I'm not going to ask you for more. And I'm okay making that agreement, right? But my baseline number is 2%, right? So, and establish that in the beginning, right? So, like, what I would say the best time to split a dollar is when you don't have one, right? So, you're going to say, look, if any of these scenarios come, like, and they offer 2% and you guys are apart, like, I'm not investing into your property, right? And there's ways, depending on the personality, you could say that. And then when the guy goes, Melissa, I think you didn't do a lot of work. I think you just cut it 0.5%, right? Was he stern when he said it? Was like, what was the tone of his voice?
Yeah, he was pretty stern. I think I feel this man is just a very detailed human being, and he analyzes everything. And he was very stern.
Yeah, so I would say, look, so help me understand,
I
right?
didn't do that.
I know. But look, it's human, right? When somebody like is like, okay, like you're not worth it, right? Like it's like, whoa. It's natural. It's just like the biggest trap in real estate. When somebody says, what do you do differently than other people? You start defending yourself, and that's never going to create a sale or a client or a relationship, right? So here's what I would have said, right? I would have said, okay, completely respect that what I hear you saying is that you'd like me to cut 0.5% because you feel I didn't do enough work. Is that correct? And he's going to say yes. So help me understand in your mind what the role of an agent is, right? And that goes back to the magic question. What do you envision an agent doing for you that you feel you can't do on your own?
Ah, that would have been so much better than what I said.
I'm gonna get a text message from Melissa. Can we do some role playing and coaching, please? So look, I think that's the important part, right? And that gives him a space to say whatever he wants to say. So in him, it's like time in, the amount of properties and everything else. So there's where I saw this. I saw this on a video on Instagram, and the guy called the plumber. The plumber came to his house, and he was there for like 45 minutes. He gets his bill, $9,000. Right? He's like, what the hell, man? He's like, you were only there for 45 minutes. And he goes, yes. He goes, exactly. I was only there 45 minutes. And that's what you're paying for, the experience of me being there 45 minutes. You could call any other plumber in town, they would have been in your house days, right? So what the investment is your detail, your work, your efficiency to get somebody what they want in a reasonable amount of time. So they're not wasting their time just looking at homes that don't align with what they want.
That is so much better.
Because
Thank you.
part of the help me understand is giving people a space, right? And when it
Yeah.
comes to sales, like if you're in a human relationship, right? Like if we're like two friends who have a disagreement, the help me understand gives a person to share their perspective and point of view. In this conversation, it's help you understand, meaning like I'm helping you understand how ridiculous what you're saying is in your own words, because when you start listening to it, so you equate like what kind of business is this guy in?
Technology. He,
Perfect. So it's like if somebody figure out what they always figure out what your client does, because it's always good. Like technology, like if you solve a really big problem for a company, are you based on, or is your compensation based on the problem that you solve, or how long it takes you to do it?
I'm just writing this down.
And just make sure they don't bill hourly.
I think we need to mute.
I got it.
It was interesting though, because I mean, very fastidious people. We did 2 walkthroughs for a total of 12 hours. Now, I don't know if I have never done a 12-hour walkthrough in my entire life. 12
12
hours.
hours.
12 hours, 2 6-hour things. Yep.
He spent 6 hours in a house?
Twice. It's, we wanted vendors, we wanted this, we had to go over all the warranties. I mean, it was perfectly fine, but he didn't, that none of that stuff mattered to him. Torture. That's funny.
That's great.
I got to play with the puppy. That was the highlight, truly. But this is true. I love the help me understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Just making a note for this to send to you. All
I
right.
have my,
Help me understand, right?
I
Help
love
me
that.
understand is give somebody like it's a disarming statement, right? So
Yes,
I don't think you did enough work. That completely understand. So what I hear you saying, so you repeat back to them what they're saying, that you feel that I should take less compensation because I didn't do enough work in your perspective.
great.
And then the next thing is, I would say, so completely hear what you're saying. Help me understand, in your perspective, what is the right amount of work for an agent to earn their compensation?
This is better than therapy.
Yeah.
That's
And that,
great. Thank you.
so Melissa, let's talk about quickly as we wrap this up, and not in the mystery client is that, talk about the defending the market, how much of like an unlock that was for you.
Yes, so when this we go back to the other client that we don't work with anymore, but he would always be, you're not doing a good enough job, you're not getting me the best prices, you're not this, you're not that, you're not that. And and he was one that only wanted what he wanted. So in working with Shirag, we just said very simply, I know what you want. I know you want to purchase 30 cents on the dollar, but I can only get you 60 cents on the dollar, and I don't want to waste any more of your time because we were putting in so many offers. But when I do, I will send it. I will reach out to you. And from that point on, I earned his respect. And that's when we started buying properties together at 60 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents on the dollar.
So in terms of defending the market, right? What I told Melissa is, I'm like, look, you don't own the market, but if you use words and phrases that defend the market, who do the people punch on like the punching bag?
The other part too was when we made an offer at a very good building and the agent was defending her price. And I was able to say with no, what's the word when you hold on to things? No
Attachment.
attachments. Thank you. English is my second language. I was able to say, I understand that that's where the market is, but that's not what this client wants. And that this is where we are with no attachment. And that was like the best feeling because I wasn't attached to the outcome. And that was awesome. And we
Yeah,
didn't get
well,
the
look,
property.
once you defend the market, like, well, this is what the homes are selling for and everything else, you are the human punching bag for other people. And in the end, what a buyer or seller does is their choice, and neither one of us control what a buyer is willing to pay for a home in any market or a seller is willing to accept for their home in any market, right? So the sooner you could understand those three principles, like your life just gets easier, right? We're facilitators and conduits. We're not people. Melissa doesn't own all these homes, or Melissa didn't sell the comp in the building that they feel ruined and stole their equity. You have nothing to do with that.
And I have a call at 3 to discuss exactly that today because we have an offer that is closer to market and the owner is above. And that's exactly what we're going to discuss. I can only control X, you can control X, and we cannot control what your neighbor is selling the property for.
Yeah, and can either one of us control what other buyers are willing to pay for homes? No. So it says based on the things we can control. So here's another good script. There's multiple properties in this building for sale.
It's yes, townhome. There are multiple properties.
Perfect. So you can say, here's what's going to happen. One person's going to set the market. One person's going to follow the market, and everyone else is going to be left with the market. So the first person that improves their price to what a buyer is willing to pay for is going to set the market, and when there are multiple units, it's going to be the highest one. then the remainder of the homes are all now going to start following that market. And then it becomes a race to the bottom. And whoever waited the longest is now left with the market. Now, if you think that pulling your property off, that's one option. The second option is could be a rental property, right? The third option is some people just want to wait, but once you're left with the markets, those become the most recent comparable sales. And it literally takes an entire cycle of supply and demand to change and the prices to be bid up for it to come back to where it is today.
Oh, that is excellent. Thank you.
So for everyone that believes that you don't need to invest time into conversations, this is where all your income is, right? It's being able to have these conversations. There's no dumb questions, Lisa. Will there be a recording sent? Yes. And I love that you have a plot note. And just because you have a plot note, we're definitely gonna make sure you get the recording twice as much. So for everybody, we'll all thank Melissa. This was a great session, Melissa. It was a good.
Thank you. It was so fun and can't wait for my call at 3.
Yeah, text me after and let me know how it goes.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And
Welcome. And we'll put Melissa's contact information into the email and a link to her
How are you,
Instagram.
darling? I just wanted to check with you something, Mike. I wanted to just let you know.
I don't know.
But we're meeting for Easter on Sunday at about.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is great.
Happy Easter, everybody.
There have been some really interesting, sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I like to just listen to these things because some of the stuff that people say, it's really funny. So love my heart, love you all. Thank you all for being here. And
See
please
you.
invite a friend next week, right? Let's help grow this community together. And look, I always say together we can always be more. So Melissa, thank you for being open and sharing and bringing real world challenges. And I think that's one of the best ways people learn. So talk to you all later. Bye, everybody.
Have a good day. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Bye.